Money mantra. Money mantra. Manage your mind. Manage your money. Peace and blessings, my people. This is a bonus episode of the Money Mantra. I am your host, Cesar, visuals, Zamudio, and this is a live interview with actor Max Arcinega. We did this live in Chicago in front of a bunch of friends, family, and supporters. I asked Max some questions about his acting career. We touched a little bit on the interview that we did during the podcast, and also we had a Q&A afterwards. I hope you enjoy this. I am your host, Cesar, Visuals Zamudio. This is the Money Mantra, and this is our launch episode. We are here today with Max Arciniega.
That's right.
I'm going to say it the way I'm supposed to say it, instead of trying to be like, Americanizing it. And if you guys know, Max is an actor, Chicago raised, born, and has been in LA for about the last 12, 13 years, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And he is been Crazy 8 on Breaking Bad, and he's had several roles on other shows that I'm gonna let him tell you more about, because I think he knows more about his career than I do. So, Max, let the people know what you do, what you're on right now, man, and what's the latest news with you, man.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone that's here today, especially thank you to you. As I told you earlier, I've always been, a friend, first of all.
Yes, sir.
We go way, way back. I think we went to kindergarten together.
Kindergarten, baby.
Yeah. And but I've always been a fan and very appreciative of the fact that, he always gives back to his community. He's always been that type of person. And I think these types of events is something special because I think one of the biggest gifts is to give back to the community where you come from. And so when he called me to come down here and have a little sit down with him, it was an absolute yes for me. Because it's something that I always strive to do as well, to give a little bit back. And at least in terms of information or experiences, anything that can help someone, just make it a little easier for someone, it's always a pleasure. But yeah, as far as work, I have they just released season 3 of Bosch on Amazon, and I'm in that show there now. I hope to be in some prequel action on Better Call Saul. I know I did an episode in season 2. We'll see how it goes in these upcoming seasons. What else? I did a show called Colony on USA, a show called Full Circle on DirecTV. All these shows are pretty much out now. You go out and stream them and what have you. But yeah, trying to stay busy.
Dope, man, yeah. Dope. So you mentioned Better Call Saul, man. So you're definitely on season 2 then, right? So we should be expecting to see you pop up soon?
I hope so. I mean, Vince Gilligan never really tells us ahead of time.
But you already did your scenes and everything, right?
I did this a scene in an episode in season 2.
Okay.
And I hope I'll continue to come back in season 3,
man.
4, 5. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
So I want to get into that since we're talking about Better Call Saul. So because I'm watching it the other day, right? The second season, and then I had to go back, obviously knowing that I was going to interview you, man. I was like, man, he popped in season 1. And I'm watching the episode, y'all. I don't know if you guys are really familiar with the episode he was in on season 1. It was brief, but I loved it because if you guys are familiar with Crazy 8 on Breaking Bad, like you got to see Domingo, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
which is not crazy. It's Domingo before his street name or whatever, right? Yeah, and he's, I guess, just starting out, dropping off, the money to Tuco. Yeah. And then, dude, that scene was intense. Cause Tuco is crazy. Like if you're Crazy 8, like he's like maniacal, insane Tuco. Cause Tuco's crazy, man. And in that scene, like he's counting, or who's the other actor, man?
It's Michael Mondo, who plays Nacho.
Nacho. That's the character's name, Nacho. Yeah. So Nacho's counting the money. Tuco counts the money first, then Nacho counts the money, right? And then Max Domingo in the show is like real nervous too. He's like, it's all there. Tuco looks at him like, man, he just gives him that look, right?
Yeah.
And he's counting the money, then he gives it to Nacho, and Nacho's counting it. And Nacho's looking at him. And to me, like just watching it, I'm like, yo, that was intense. It was intense. Like how tell us about that, man. Like how was it for you as an actor, man? And cause like I said, on the outside perspective, I don't want to be in the same room with Tuco. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think. I mean, if you guys saw the show, I don't think anyone wants to be in the same room with him. The exciting part about it was to play the character again. I think it was about 7 years later. You know, I did Breaking Bad, the first episode of Breaking Bad in 2007, and the following 2 episodes were in 2008. And I had a conversation with Vince Gilligan at a party. This was post Breaking Bad when the show was over, and I chatted with him at a party, and he was telling me that, you know, the only show that they were working on, trying to get off the ground, was a prequel to Breaking Bad called Better Call Saul. And he told me, he's like, you know, if it goes through, there's a slight possibility that your character will come back. And so, you know, I take him for his word because he's a man of his word. And so it kind of just, you know, stuck in my head. I'd be like, it's interesting to try to play that same character 7 years later. And then when I read the scene, to know that he was not Crazy 8 yet was actually a treat as an actor, because you get a chance to explore a different side of the character.
Yeah.
And in this case, he's just getting started. It's his pretty much first big deal that he goes to meet Tuco, but he's awfully nervous because anyone would be sitting across from this crazy guy. And so it was a great time. It was like, just, you know, I didn't have to do much work. I just sat. I'd never met Raymond Cruz before.
Yeah.
I'd seen a bunch of his work.
Right.
And I thought it'd be a good idea not to say anything to him, to just sit down at the table. They sat us down for rehearsal. We sat at that same table, and I didn't say a word to him. He didn't say a word to me. And we just they called action, and we went into the scene, which made it a lot easier to just react to this guy that I didn't know. And so it was interesting and pretty scary. But Raymond Cruz is a super nice guy afterwards. I got a chance to actually talk to him, and he's a sweet guy, very, very professional too. He's been in the business for a long time, so it was fun.
So going into that, man, when you're talking about, you know, you didn't talk to him, and in your mind, did you already think like, man, this might be a good idea as far as this role I got to play right now, to not talk to him so I could stay in this character?
Yeah. It's always, anytime you're given an opportunity as an actor to do as much. I mean, it's a sense of method acting in a way, but it just works for you. It makes it a lot easier. So given the opportunity, I was like, I told the director, I was like, just keep us away from each other, and I think the scene will be a little bit more richer.
Yeah, that's what's up, man.
Sounds good, yeah.
Dope. So talk to me now about Bosch, man. I'm really interested in Bosch. I know I've been hearing you talk about it for a while, but I haven't had a chance to watch it at all. So I don't even know what the show's about, really, to be honest with you. Tell us a little bit about the show, man, and your role in the show.
So Bosch, they're in season 3 now. It's an Amazon show it's pretty much based on some detective crime novels by Michael Connelly. And it's about this detective named Bosch who's trying to figure out. In season 1, he's trying to figure out who killed his mother. So he goes. That's the reason that he's into the business that he's in. And as the seasons move along, in season 2, it seems like he does figure out who actually killed his mom. But as the novels move along, you realize in season 3, which is the one that just came out, that the person he thought was the killer might not be the killer. So that's what it's going to lead you into season 4. But throughout the seasons, there's different cases. They're not serialized cases like in CSI, where you try to figure out who the killer is by the end of the episode. It's a much more character-driven show. All of it takes place in Los Angeles, so in a weird way, it's almost like a love letter to the city. Contemporary noir in terms of style and feel of the show. Just very, very well written, very well produced. They have a great team there. And in season 3, I come on as a group of 3 guys who were special forces, and one of our buddies ends up missing, and so they're trying to figure out what happened to this character, and they come and investigate 3 of us who used to be special forces, and that arc goes out throughout the entire season of season 3. So it's a really cool show, man. If you guys have Amazon Prime, it's a show that you guys should check out for sure.
And if you don't have Amazon Prime, you should get it.
Get it, because it's free shipping for
man. Real talk.
Free 2-day shipping.
Not like I'm being paid by Amazon, even though you should sponsor the Money Mantra podcast. Amazon, $99, 2-day shipping. Like, you get Prime Video, Prime Photo. Come on, now, man.
You get these free shows.
He got Amazon Prime, man.
I do.
You know what I'm saying? How you gonna be on an Amazon show? Like, is it like a
They should give us a free subscription.
They don't give you a free.
No,
come on. See, man, come on, how you gonna do a show for somebody and they're not giving you like their service for free?
They always ask those questions too. Like when you do commercials, they'll be like, "Do you get free Dr. Pepper for doing a Dr. Pepper?" Nothing.
That's terrible, man.
Nothing.
That's
you have to go out and buy it.
Man. Wow, man. Yeah, there's no free money for being on a Money Mantra show, just so you know. There's no free money. There's no free money. We could do some meditation afterwards if you want. I'm with it. Like, I'm
gonna pray for the money.
I'll guide you, man. I'll do some guided meditation for you.
Yeah.
So listen, man. So earlier we were talking about, so Max, he did a stint in the music industry.
Yeah.
And we were talking a little bit about that. And I'm in the music industry now, for you guys that know. He was telling me how the music industry and the acting industry is just so different.
Yeah.
Especially on the business end. And me not really knowing too much about acting, just knowing a little bit, like I kind of already saw that because the music industry is, let me just say that, you know what I'm saying? That's for me that's in it, like in it. So you mentioned something about, you were talking about like residuals and things like that, and then how people get paid, and then SAG, which is the union. Talk to us a little bit about that, man, the differences and how the music industry is run compared to the acting industry.
I mean, I think for me, some of the I think standard things is that, in the music business, you have unions that protect, musicians that come in and play, like they do like gigs when you bring them in and stuff like that. Some people are protected, but overall, you don't have the same type of protection that you have in the acting business because SAG is such a strong union. So you have just, through SAG, you have a lot of standard rates, standard, practices that should be standard in any job that you have, especially for creatives, that protect you. For instance, if you're doing let's say a gig, anything that's union-based, if you go out and do a job and do a co-star role or a guest star role, there are standard rates that the union protects you with, that you are to be paid X amount of money minimum. And there is no way around it. So if you're a producer trying to hire an actor that's in a union, you know that when you speak to the union that there's going to be standard rates and standard things that you have to pay. In the music business, unfortunately, you're not protected in that same way, especially with all the technology that's moved along. It makes it really difficult for people to monitor all of that. A lot of musicians, hip hop artists, at least I know a lot of hip hop artists that have been in the music business. They do a lot of the work on their own. When it comes to shows, they could have a manager that's out there trying to, make deals with the promoters or what have you, but they're not protected by the union, and those practices, I think it speaks for itself, just standard things like any other job. You should have rights, you should be protected in some way because this is the way that you make your living. And I think that I've always found that, in the music business, it's a little bit shakier because there's, those 360 deals that are super complicated contracts where you're initially, signing away, where you give up money in every aspect of your career, whether it's shows or live shows, But I think, in the acting world, like I said, anytime you have a union involved, you have some type of protection, and it makes it a little bit easier to navigate.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So Max, when you were doing music, man, like, were you doing acting at the same time, kind of like messing with it, or how did that work out? What led you into acting outside of music?
I started. Well, it's been interesting because I started acting first.
Okay.
I think in 5th grade. For the people on Facebook, I have a friend here who I went to school with. Well, you were in the play as well. That was my first play. Yeah, it was 5th grade, I think. Yeah, and it was a little theater production where this guy. There was no theater program in the grammar school that we went to,
okay.
And they brought in this guy who happened to be like a theater teacher, and he got together with a group of students from, I think, 3rd grade to 8th grade or something like that, or maybe 5th grade to 8th grade, and it was a wonderful program. He got all these kids together. Everyone got together, and we wrote our own play. We wrote our own monologues as part of the play. We created our own costumes. We had rehearsal. We went through the entire process of what it would be like to create a production, a full-on production, a full-on play, from start to finish. And so that experience, it was a lot of fun to be around people, a bunch of creatives, and I remember it just had an impact on me. had an impact on me. And throughout there, then in high school, I started kind of dabbling a little bit more in it, kind of went back to it. It was always something I liked movies a lot. I liked watching TV. And I think about when I got into high school, a little before high school, I started, I was always in hip hop culture. My boys were B-boys and there was music around. My brother was a graffiti artist. And so it was always around. It was a combination of two things. And so for a long time, it was a dual situation where it was like doing plays and doing hip hop shows. Two different worlds. People on this side didn't know that I did hip hop and vice versa. But it was always kind of happening all at the same time. Spoken word performances. It was always some type of stage performing. And then I went to college. I was a theater major there, and I was still doing a lot of shows in Chicago at the time. But it wasn't until I got out to LA and I started doing a little bit more of the acting stuff that it's just really, really hard to balance. It was hard to balance two things, because in the music business, you had to set up all your own shows and you had to do all this stuff. And it was just hard to, continue to audition and try to put on shows. Right. There was a time where I was living in LA and I'd come back and do a show here and there, maybe once or twice a year. But then it got to a point where the workload was just too much, and I just had to make a conscious choice about it. And I think for me, it was just, I think the acting stuff was just working out a little bit better for me.
Yeah. So what do you miss about being part of the hip hop world, man?
The culture. I think the culture. I think not just the music. I think it was, it felt like community. I'd go to B-boy events with Phase 2. They were my family. And so just going out to events with them and seeing, everyone come together and it was a sense of competition too. So it was like everybody get together and try to like one up each other, and that kept people fresh and wanting to come back home and work on things, and it all bled together because part of our boys, there were DJs too, and so the DJ, the music, and my brother was an artist, and we'd bring some of that artistry onto the stage, and it was just artistic. It was innocent. It was just a great time. I think it was the golden era of hip hop in the '90s is what we grew up on, and so I miss the culture. I miss the people. I miss the I'm still I got my Adidas shell toes. I'm rocking. It's a little bit. So I mean, but I'll tell you that hip hop. I mean, it genuinely does save lives, man. It really does. It kept us creative, and it definitely was a springboard to going into the acting business and feeling comfortable on stage and having a lot of experience. Because when you're an MC and you're on stage, you got to hold the crowd and hold interest, and it's a hard work, and it's a struggle, and it prepares you for a lot of other things. So
most definitely, man. I could definitely see that transition. Being a little smoother from being a hip hop artist into acting. You know what I'm saying? I could definitely see that. Who are you listening to right now, man? Taking it back into hip hop, man. I want to know who you're listening to right now, because this is we're gonna take a little bit into the hip hop world, man. We hear a lot of things, especially from cats like us that've been around, man. We grew up in the golden era. We know all the legends. We know what it is. But who you rocking with right now, man? Like right now, give me like two or three, man. Come on, you got
the truth is before I came here to Chicago, I was listening to Magnum Force by Helter Skelter.
Oh yeah,
the album.
Oh yeah.
And so I went back into the Boot Camp Click catalog and listening to Representatives and Helter Skelter, OGC, and but that's just a little throwback to get the juices flowing. Who else? I mean, I recently became good friends with Emilio Rojas, man.
Okay.
I'm sure you guys
know
for sure.
Him, man.
And I've been working on some stuff with him, not on the music stuff, but just other stuff. Good guy, man. I think he's super talented, man. Super talented. I think being a Latino artist too, man. It's a good thing to try to support and try to get people like that to come out in the forefront and try to make some moves. And he's someone that I listen to. And then as far as I guess mainstream stuff, I like J. Cole.
Dope.
I like Big Sean a little bit.
Okay.
That's recent.
Stuff.
Yeah.
That's what's up, man. I dig that. Okay, man.
But usually always, for sure, all the old school stuff for sure.
Oh yeah, of course,
always
man.
Go back to that. Yeah.
You gotta let everybody know that, right? We rock with the real in here.
No, it's just it's incredible to think back how in the '90s there was just everyone sounded so different. Man. It's incredible to think that you had so many hip hop groups that sounded absolutely different, completely different. solo artists that sounded completely different. It was almost a sin to sound like somebody else. Like when you were, trying to sound like somebody else, biting somebody else's style. And today, there's an amazing amount of artists that do sound different, but there's also a large amount of music that, sounds the same. And sometimes I get them confused.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think there's a major difference from what it was to what it is now, at least on that aspect, man. Originality has definitely gone down a little bit.
Yeah.
So going and talking about hip hop, and then you did mention competition earlier. That was one of the things that you miss about it, which is a great part of hip hop. I want to know about the competition in the acting world, though, man. Like, what's that like? Like, walk us through a little bit. Like, maybe, I don't know, give us a situation or walk us through something you've been in or you wanted to be part of and it just didn't happen, man. Like, you got out acted.
Yeah. The beauty about the acting world for me is that the competition's honestly always with yourself. It's never with anybody else, other actors. You have no control of what happens in the casting process. You go in and read for something, and you could be the director's choice, meaning that the director wants you for the role.
Right.
And then it gets to the network and the studios. So if, let's say, you're doing a show for ABC or something like that, you have a studio that's putting up the money, and and they're working with the network. So you have two groups of people that are making decisions in that process.
Sure.
They bring on a director to direct an episode or a few episodes or what have you, and so it's impossible to control those things. You have no control in the casting process. So the job becomes your preparation for the role. That's all you have control of, is to walk in a room. Let's say sometimes it is this many people in a testing process. And all you have is the work that you've put in the rehearsal process, a very, very short rehearsal process, maybe like half a day, to come in and do, let's say, 3 or 4 scenes worth 14 pages of dialogue that you get a short amount of time to prepare. So you go in and you try your best to give it your best, and that's all you have. The second you leave the room, you have to forget about it. It's not easy to get into that mind state, but it's something that takes a lot of practice, a lot of years of training to be able to get into that state of mind where it doesn't bother you. There are moments, of course, where you're up for stuff that you're like, God, if I get this, it's going to change my life. And there's been plenty of those. But those things you just can't,
can't hold on to them too much.
You can't hold on to them, because sometimes you'll get stuff that you think is going to do really good for you and it doesn't go that way. And you have to have tough skin, man. You have to have tough skin. So the competition is always in that. When you do a job, you get an opportunity to look at your work, see what works, see what doesn't work, and go back and say to yourself, like, all right, I kind of like that, but I didn't like that. Next time I get the next job, I'll have a little bit more experience in terms of how to convey what I'm trying to convey in a much more subtle way, or depending on, but that's all technique and stuff you learn while you're on set. You learn it in the rehearsal process, but it's very tricky to rehearse stuff that you're not shooting per se.
Right,
you know what I mean? Once you get on set and you're working with the actors and working with the director and then everyone that's involved in the process, it's just a different beast. Auditioning and actually shooting are completely different worlds.
Yeah.
You train to audition, and then that process is something completely different. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. I never really thought it was like that. I remember you mentioned earlier too when we were talking, saying how you don't even have to live in LA no more, right?
Yeah, the technology is it's so advanced now. Before you'd have to, people moved out to LA because you'd go in to audition first, you'd get a call back, and in a callback, the producers and directors were in the room, and they'd have to see you in person. Nowadays, I would say about 90% of the stuff that I get cast in or actors get cast in is off of tape. So you essentially go into the casting director's office, but she's the only one in there. And she'll record you, and then she'll send those tapes out to wherever the show's shooting, if it's in New Orleans, New York, New Mexico, wherever it's at. The producers and the directors will look at the tape and cast you off the tape. Crazy. And so nowadays you could technically pretty much be anywhere in the US or wherever you decide to go. If you have those relationships and you're able to get those auditions, you send the tape in, they'll cast you and then fly you out to wherever you have to work.
Wow, man. That's interesting. I didn't know that, man. When you told me that, I was a little bit like, okay, that's what's up, though.
We're not 100% there, but we're getting close to it. I've spoken to a lot of casting directors that I have friends of mine that have moved out of LA that now live in Atlanta, New Orleans, different places. It's an opportunity too to not have to be in the hustle every single day. It's a little draining.
Yeah, you could live wherever you want. It's got to be a little bit of a smoother situation for a lot of up and coming actors.
Absolutely,
know that,
absolutely.
That's great, man. So let's get a little bit into, we already did the interviews. You guys know we did an interview for the podcast, and we talked about you deciding to go to LA. Like, I'm gonna be an actor. I'm going to LA. Tell them a little bit about that, man, about how you went over there and it wasn't all peaches and cream, man.
Yeah, I mean, I went, when I was in college, I was trying to decide if it was going to be in New York or LA. At the time, it was about 12, 13 years ago, the business in terms of television and film was pretty much non-existent here. So there just wasn't any opportunities. So it's one of those things. It's kind of like the music business. We didn't have like labels here,
right?
So you had to go out and and that's the tough part. You leave your city, people get upset at you. You do some stuff, you come back. It's a very fine line, with your community at times. But at that time, you're forced to go because you're not getting the opportunities. But yeah, I was a theater major, and for me, I wanted to do more television and film at the time, and I don't remember how it happened, but I knew that it was. I actually went out there in like 2002 to kind of like just get a feel for the city and see if it was something that was feasible, was going to be possible. And I went out there. I think in 2002, actually, ABC did their first what they call diversity showcase, and the networks were trying to work on having more diversity on television. This is 13 years ago too. Or more. It's probably more than 13. And so they decided they wanted to do it in Chicago for the first time, which was pretty amazing. So they came out to Chicago and hosted an audition process, and they selected, I think, about 16 actors. And those 16 actors had an opportunity to meet all the executives from ABC and put on a showcase here in Chicago. And they brought out all the executives from ABC to come see us perform. And I auditioned for it, and I got into it, and so I met, some people, and I asked them if they were doing any other showcases. They said that the other networks were trying to follow suit if this one went well, and sure enough, CBS was second to step up at that time. And I went out in 2003 to LA because I kind of wanted to test to see if, I said, all right, Chicago's a smaller market. I got in here, but I want to test to see if I get in out there.
Yeah.
So I went out there in 2003, and CBS hosted a very similar showcase. And but there it was, way more people auditioning. It was like, about 1,000 people that auditioned for it. And I got into the showcase, and this time they put on a showcase, but it was in Los Angeles. So all these other networks, managers, agents, all came to see this showcase. It was about 16 actors. You put on scenes for the executives or whatever. So I got into that. I got picked, and we did the showcase. I wasn't living out there at the time. So I remember I auditioned, I flew back, and when I got off the plane, I had a voicemail, and they were like, hey, you got picked. You start rehearsal in 2 days. And they had no idea that I didn't live out there, and so I was just like, "Oh shit!" So I got on a plane, headed back, and we rehearsed. We did the showcase, and it was a great turnout. We got a write-up and a bunch of papers out there, and that put me in front of a lot of casting directors and managers and agents, and then the networks. But as soon as I finished the showcase, I flew back, and then I started getting a bunch of phone calls to audition for all these shows.
Okay.
And I was just like, hey, I live in Chicago. And I was like, but I'll be back in January. I'm planning to move out there. And I was like, if we could stay in touch, I'd really appreciate it. And they're like, yeah, for sure. And so I went back in January, and I made all these phone calls to all these, casting offices. And it was literally like starting from scratch.
Man.
The only thing that helped me, though, was with managers and agents, I had a card to pull on them. So when I met with them, I was like, listen, I just got cast in the ABC showcase, CBS showcase. And right before I moved out, the Casting Society of America got together with the casting directors in Chicago. And they said, hey, listen, we want to take 30 actors to LA and present them to all these casting directors. So we want you guys to pick 30 actors. And so I think it was 20 or 30 actors or something like that. And so I got picked as one of the 20 or 30 there.
Wow.
And so I went out there again in January, did a showcase, and sure enough, I started seeing some of those same casting directors that were at the CBS showcase and same managers and agents. And so that helped me out a lot. And so when I started taking meetings with agents and managers, I was like, hey, listen, Fern Ornstein over at CBS cast me, Randy Sugarman at ABC. These were the people that were running the show at the time. And that's how I got my first agent manager and kind of got started. And at that time, I was like, I'm in, you know? But then it took me 76 auditions before I got my first job. And that was about 2 years worth of literally, I mean, just audition after audition after audition. And my first job was like a co-star role on a show called Surface for NBC.
Okay.
And they put me on a first class flight. I remember sitting in the first class for the first time ever. And I was trying to find where the tray was, like, because they were getting ready to serve food. And this gentleman that was sitting next to me obviously noticed, and he just kind of like looked over and he's like pulled it out of this thing.
He's like, must be your first time.
That's exactly 100%. It's exactly what he said. And I said, it was obvious, right? He's like, yeah. And so that was my first job, and you know, I thought I made it, you know. Because you know, as a kid, you're like, man, if I could just have one line in a show, you know. And here I am in first class, you know, they're flying me out. It was Wilmington, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I did my job. I got back to LA, and I was just like, I'm in, you know. Sure enough, right back to the grind. It was just another, you know, who knows how many auditions. Got another co-star role, and so it was like that at the beginning. It was just like trying to get the next gig.
Man, let me ask you this, man. So this is 76 auditions, right? I mean, most people just like, no, I'm done. Like I'm gonna be a cashier at Home Depot, man. F it, then I'm gonna be a manager. I'm doing it big. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, that's life. That's just life. Yeah. What is it, man? You did 76, you got the one, you thought you did it, but no, it still didn't work out. You still did more auditions after that and had to get back on the grind. Like, what is it that kept you moving, man? What's going on in your head and your heart that made you say, like, man, this is what I'm gonna do. I don't care that it took 76 for this one, and I don't care that it took another 50 for the next one. Like, what kept you going?
A little bit of being naive.
Okay.
Just not, you know, not knowing enough. Mm-hmm. You know, I was having a great time. It was, you know, it's a completely different place. Moving out there, you know, it was you know,
LA.
It's LA. You
it's
know,
beautiful.
It's like, you know, you go into these studios and you're seeing places that, you know, you used to see in the movies, and you know, you're on the lot. You're at Warner Brothers. You're at Fox. You're at CBS, and so there's this you know, fresh, you know, feeling of like, oh my God, I'm in this new place, and you know, it was a little bit of that. But then the other part was a little bit of, you know, we're pretty prideful people here in Chicago. We work hard, and it was one of those things of like, you know, I'm gonna represent for where I come from, and I represent my family, I represent my friends, I represent my city, and I just, in my head there wasn't a second option. It was just one of those things of like, it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen, and not in a conceited way or anything like that. It's just, you know, I grew up playing sports too. I come from a sports background, so it was you know, I have to win, and my version of winning was to there was no going back, really, to be honest with you. I think it was that, and it's just consistent telling myself that it's going to happen, and you just have to be patient. And I would learn, you know, I start meeting people that had been in the business, you know, a little bit longer than I had, and they'd be like, how long have you been out here? And I was like, 2 years. And they're like, what have you done so far? And I tell them, and they're like, oh, you're good, man. You're going to be fine. It takes time to, you know, because people go out there and they're like, you know, I'm going to give myself 2 years and let's see how it goes, and then I'll head back. And I tell, you know, people that are on their way there, I'm like, you got to give yourself at least 5 years to even get started. I mean, you know, you get there, when you move out there, you've never lived there before. You got to get a job, part-time job or something to, you know, sustain yourself. You know, it's expensive out there. You got to get a place to live. You got to meet friends. It's so hard nowadays. I mean, it's, you know, even back then, even to get an agent or a manager was just, you know, someone that's going to believe in you, someone that's going to say, you know, I believe in you, and I'm going to, you know, send you in there. You have to hope that these casting directors are going to take a look at you and give you an opportunity, and you have to be ready to perform. you know, consistently at a very, very close to 10 level. Because sometimes you go in, actually my first job, it's casting director, well, I won't say her name, but this casting director, I came in and I kind of, you know, the scene wasn't too complicated, and I left and felt good about it. And my manager called me, she said, hey, what happened? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you know, I spoke to the casting director, and she kind of said that you're a little green. And I was like, I mean, you know, I'm green in the sense that I just came out here. I said, but I've been acting a long time. I said, she was asking something that just wasn't, she was asking for a little bit too much. So I felt like I was pushing and overacting a little bit. And I didn't want to do that. I knew they were recording it and sending it to, I was like, look, I said, I promise, I think if they send the tape, I think they'll feel a little bit different about it. And she was like, oh, okay, cool. And she called back when I got the job, and she was like, yeah, I guess you were right. And this casting director's a big casting director. So, you know, to try to go against her was just like, you know, you don't do that. But it was kind of like instinct and, you know, but yeah, so that's what it was.
Wow. So you pushed through it, man. And obviously you are where you are now. And it's a great position. What's the downside of that, man, of not getting those gigs and going to all these auditions and not making it and being told no and still trying? What's the downside, man? Walk us through that. Things you went through and had to deal with.
Without a doubt. I mean, I think for anyone to say that they haven't experienced some type of like, you know, downtime because of that process, it would be crazy. Because even, you know, I have, you know, friends of mine that are, you know, working actors that are doing really big, you know, just super successful careers.
Sure.
Some that are a little bit lower, you know, down the ladder. I know that, you know, I have friends that are at different stages of their career. And, you know, it's just one of those things where you have to find other things in your life that make you happy. You know, aside of that, that's your job and you have a great time doing it. But there's got to be other things in your life that that sustain you in other ways.
Definitely.
Because it's you know, you read a lot, you hear a lot about, you know, these creatives that, you know, they take their lives. You know, and it's and I think it's a combination of it's a very, very lonely place. As crazy as that sounds, because, you know, when you see it on TV, it's, you know, there's a lot of glitz and glamour and all of that stuff. But the process is it's brutal. You know, it's a brutal process because you have to go through the downs to get to the ups and down and up. And so in my case, I mean, I've been blessed. You know, I have an opportunity to come back home. I re-energize. I spend time with my family. I spend time with my friends. The city always inspires me, and I go back. I usually work more when I come home. I come home, I get re-energized, I go back, and there's just something about me that I go in these audition rooms and I'm ready to roll.
Kill it, huh?
I usually get most of my jobs after my trips to Chicago. It's a very, very crazy thing, but it's it's something that you have to find. You just have to find other things in your life that sustain you. Surround yourself around, you know, great people, creative people. And build a network of friends and creative, you know, alliances that are going to support you and do and push you towards, you know, positive things.
For sure.
Yeah,
that's great, man. I'm glad you had solutions for that, and I'm glad that you left us right there with saying that you had to find other things to keep yourself busy and keep yourself happy and filled with joy. Because I think that's one thing that I know I've definitely dealt with in the past, where, you know, I'm trying to transition from this thing to the next, and there's something missing and I couldn't find it. You know, right. I had to find it myself and realize that, you know, whether it was family, friends, or writing or creating or doing this, or even if I wasn't, you know, getting this gig or going on this tour, doing this and that, I was still creating and it was still something I loved. You know what I'm saying? So that was definitely a solution for me to realize that I had the blessings in front of me. You know what I'm saying? I was looking too far ahead sometimes. So that's dope, man. Listen, we're gonna open it up right now, man, to everybody. I know you guys gotta have some questions, man. Like I said, either for Max, for myself, about the podcast, about acting, about music, about entrepreneurship, business, anything. So we're gonna open it up to whoever has a question. Who got one for us, guys? Don't get shy. I got one. What we got, Baz? What's up?
What's up, man? How you doing? We talked a little bit about school. And me and my friends always have a debate about going to school and like how it's a big scam and it's a waste of time. From your perspective, do you think school played a big part of your career?
Just specifically to my case, it did. Only because as far as acting training, there's no, I think there's no, just in my opinion, I think there's no better training than starting in the theater, because you get a really, really good foundation in terms of what process is from every perspective. Even this 5th grade experience that I had, it taught me literally how it works from beginning to end. This is how we write a play. This is how we rehearse for it. This is how we create the costumes. This is how we stage it. This is how we get the audience to come, and you learn all of that in the process. I mean, do you need school to be an actor? No, not at all. I mean, you know, there are some people that are just naturally gifted in certain ways where you either you get lucky or you get put on something, you gain your experience, you know, in the process. But it doesn't mean that, there's some actors that, would I have been into acting even if I didn't go to school? Probably, but I don't have any regrets in terms of that experience. I went to Columbia College in downtown Chicago, and it was a great community of actors. The people that I was in school with were, awesome people, man. People that are working, a lot of actors and directors and writers that come out of Columbia are, they've had successful careers. In my group of graduating class, I have friends of mine that I'm still friends with today that have done great things, man. Some have gone out to write for Saturday Night Live. Others have been on big shows. A lot of, but I noticed that what they do have that other people don't have is that strong foundation of teamwork, camaraderie between the process. And so when you get into television, you almost feel a little not overtrained, but over ready to get the ball rolling, because you have all that experience. The rehearsal process in theater, you get like an entire month before you do a run of let's say a month worth of shows where you're performing 8 shows a week, which is a lot, but it's a lot. Is it necessary? Not necessarily. I mean, there are other things. Some people do conservatories, depending on the business that you're in. I'm not sure if you're in a music business or whatever you do. If you're an actor, there's programs that you could do for, a year of, let's say, Meisner School, or a year of, training at some place, and you might still get that, same level of experience. So it just depends, on what it is that you're doing. I mean, if you're going to be a doctor, you obviously have to go to school. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, exactly. They're the standard, But when it comes to the creative side of it, it can go either way. I'm not, for me, it's not like yes, it's just a yes or no answer.
A lot of your peers, did they go to school? Like the ones that you work with in the industry?
Yes and no. Yeah. Some of them have, and some of them,
just the grind.
Yeah, they started just from a different place. Some of them are from LA, so they got more into like television. Their preparation was in like television acting. And it's just a slightly different process of how you get there. But, and then others haven't. And I'm like, how'd you get into business? He's like, I was in an elevator. You know what I'm saying? Like, they saw me, they thought I looked cool, and I got hired. And, some people fall into it. Some people are directors that accidentally fall into the acting, or they're writers that accidentally fall into acting. And, but yeah, so yeah, don't ever feel like, it's sometimes people will, like, let's say they'll be in their mid-20s or something, and they're like, oh, well, I haven't gone to school and I don't have the proper training, so I'm scared to try. You should never feel that way. You go to one acting class is going to give you at least enough information to see if it's something that you enjoy. You start there, you take a second acting class. You slowly build your way up. You gain confidence, hang around people that are doing the same things that you're doing, and you learn a lot from them. So. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Sure.
And I guess in acting, what do you think is the common struggle between actors as far as the skill or the craft is concerned that you see is like pretty much common amongst all of you that you kind of struggle with as far as being in the acting? Like what is it across lines, those that are trained and those that are not trained, that I guess is the most difficult?
Yeah, I mean, usually it is that. It's the level of commitment. You know what I mean? There's this thing that sometimes I used to host. I hosted like an acting group in LA that I've had for maybe like 6 or 7 years, and it's I started it in my living room, And I got a bunch of my friends together. I said, every Wednesday, let's get together and keep our swords sharp. We'll come in, we'll do scenes. I said, we'll put each other on tape, record each other, and, we'll give ourselves feedback. And I started kind of like leading the group. And it's been running for about 6 to 7 years. Even sometimes when I'm not there, I'll go maybe 6 months without going there. But what you immediately see is one, who shows up on time, two, who's prepared, three, who's coming in and like really, really, really work. There's so many things that happen in a very, very short amount of time. And a lot of casting directors will tell you the same thing. Sometimes they'll read a bunch of people, The typical way that it used to happen is like, let's say it's a Monday audition. They'll start reading people at 9 a.m. up until 4:30 p.m. So a bunch of people will come in. And out of those people, they'll take about 5 people to the producer session, which is a callback session. There's not a lot of people. There's only 5 people out of all those people that auditioned. And maybe 3 out of those 5 didn't even have to go into this pre-read because they've been working. They already know their work, so they'll bring them directly into it. And so what ends up happening is you have to have just that level of commitment, that level of work ethic is what usually separates most people. Because you don't get a lot of opportunities. You go in and, let's say you're meeting a casting director for the first time. That first impression thing goes a long, long way in these situations. Why? Because they read so many people and they don't have time. If they write notes and they remember your face, they will remember you. That was one thing that people would always tell me, just make a good impression, because these casting directors have such a great memory. And it never made sense to me. I was like, they're never going to remember, 5, 6 years later. And I promised you, 5 or 6 years later, these casting directors would hire me. After reading me for years, and I was like, this person's never going to hire me. And finally, the right role comes along, and they hire you based on always bringing you in. But it's a separation of preparation, and a lot of that stuff can happen on your own time. With the technology that we have, this camera here is your friend. You set it up in your room, you begin to memorize lines. I usually can memorize about 14 pages of dialogue in an evening. Like if I get it at 6 p.m. and I have to go in and read at 10 a.m., I'm probably going to be ready. Only because I spend a lot of time consistently working over and over and over and over again. And that's what I tell, my group of actors. It's like, if you read against me at an audition, I'll tell you that you're going to read against somebody that is consistently working out. You know what I mean? And if you don't come at that level, that's who you're going to be up against, because those are the guys that are working, and the guys that are working know how hard it is to get a job and know how hard it is to have to put in that work. You know what I mean? So you see a lot of that. That's kind of what separates most people. And I think it's like that just in general, right? In everything that you do, in whatever business that you're in, especially in sports. That's what I love about sports, is that there's no cheating. You're either good enough to play in the league or you're not. You either put the work in or you don't. And it's the same thing in business, right? You see the people that fall off. I've had a lot of people that, I've seen through 13 years take off, unfortunately. And it's sad. It's sad to me, because it just means, they lost faith at some point. They lost hope at some point, but hopefully that answers your question. Yeah.
We got time for a couple more questions, y'all. So anybody else? Right here.
Yeah. How long did you do theater for? What kind of, did you do theater here in Chicago?
I did, yeah. I was,
and when did you decide, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go into acting, TV acting?
Right. Well, I love theater, and I will always want to do theater. I started, before I went to school, I was taking more theater classes. I was just kind of like in and out. And then I went and I was a theater major. I did about 2.5 years. That was the curriculum. And then I got...
You went to Second City type of theater before you went to Columbia?
Before I went to Columbia, they had different classes. There were some classes at Victory Gardens Theater at the time that were just, acting classes that you could sign up for, maybe for 6 weeks. It was just kind of to get the blood flowing again, and seeing, how much I missed it, and, what it was doing to me. And
Since
then
5th grade?
Well, no, I was on and off. From 5th grade, I started again in probably in high school, dabbling again. And then I think my senior year of high school, same thing, dabbling in classes and trying to see where it was going to go. And then I finished my general ed courses. It was at Northeastern Illinois. And then at that point, that's when I was just like, you know what, I got to make a choice on this. And that's when I was like, I'm going to be a theater major. But before I went to Columbia, I did take a few more courses There was a place called Act One Studios at the time that offered classes. Victory Gardens offered classes. And then I got cast in some stuff through that. You know, I did like a couple of plays. And then I went to Columbia. And at Columbia, I was doing both of them because I got cast in a play at Columbia that kind of opened some doors for me to start out working outside of school. So I was doing school and kind of plays at the same time. And then when I got out to LA, I did do a play at the Mark Taper Forum in LA. Well, actually, when I moved away, the Goodman called me and they're like, hey, we want you to do this play. And I was like, I've been living in Chicago my whole life. It was on my bucket list. I was like, I want to do a play on the main stage at the Goodman. And sure enough, they called. So I drove back and spent 4 months in 2003 in Chicago. I did a play at the Goodman. It was called Electricidad. It was actually, it had a little bit of Spanish in it. It was a modern take on the play Electra by Sophocles. Yeah. And so it was about 2.5 years, and then did a little bit of work outside of school in a theater. And then while I was in school, I was already starting to kind of feel like, all right, I think it's going to be LA. Right. Just because I know, you could always do theater, and it's always going to be there for you. I love theater. I love it. It's my, it's kind of the foundation of where I came from. And sometimes I get the itch big time. Don't get me wrong. There was they remounted the Zoot suit in LA at the beginning of this year, and that was something that I had my eye on. But the problem is that sometimes just scheduling doesn't work out, and I just couldn't do it. But as soon as I get an opportunity to do a play again, I'll absolutely do it. Yeah, there's nothing like live theater. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Greatness. One more. Right.
So, what has your experience as an artist of color been?
It's a good question.
Great question.
It's a good question. Well, it's a very, very tricky thing because we're moving forward slowly. I had the opportunity to work with the guy that actually took me out to LA originally was this guy named Alex Nogales, who runs the National Hispanic Media Coalition, which is like, let's say, a Hispanic version of maybe not the NAACP, but African American programs that push for more people of color to be on television, but they monitor the numbers. Okay. And so I learned a lot from that because at that time in 2003 or 4, the percentage of, let's say, African Americans to Hispanics, Hispanics to Asians, Asians to Indians were still very, very, very low. And it takes the community to show their power at the box office, and that's the only way things are going to change. So that's been happening recently. The problem at that time is that you're an actor who's starting off, and you're young, you're starting off, you want to work, you want to build your resume to have the opportunity to get another job. And the tough part is sometimes, you have to sacrifice a little bit. So, you start taking roles that you probably shouldn't be doing only because it doesn't push the culture forward, depending on what your culture is. But in a very crazy way, it's necessary for people to sacrifice that to get the opportunity to be, to have a voice. Do I feel that all the people in my community do that? Not all the time, because there are people that are in a position now that have the opportunity to get these deals with these networks, and then they'll do these shows that you're just like, that's exactly what we're trying to stay away from. This pilot season, I read a lot of both Hispanic, Asian, African American, pilots that have, the same kind of subject matters that we try to stay away from. But it's the stuff, unfortunately, sometimes that sells. And what sells is what keeps the shows on the network. So have I experienced, the stereotyping? 100%. Does it still exist? 100%. But I was telling Omar and Cesar earlier that there are times where I pass on projects. for the sake of this is not going to push, the agenda forward. And that's our responsibility. That's my responsibility. And it's something that I'm working on personally. I have a small production company that I have some partners in, and we've done a bunch of short films. We're trying to develop projects and scripts that are gonna push the culture forward and give more opportunities to minorities, not only in terms of ethnicity but also in terms of gender. We're pushing strongly to get more female writers, female directors, female producers. But it's moving slowly but surely. But this is an opportunity for all of us, to continue to push. And it's starting to show up at the box office. This weekend, you had, I think it was a Hispanic movie and an Indian movie who, aside of the Fast and the Furious, came in at number 2 and number 3. And that just shows that the numbers, that the culture's coming out to buy the tickets, and it's a good sign. But with that comes the responsibility of making sure that when you have that opportunity to do it, that you're trying to create stuff that is going to bring real diversity and inclusion, more importantly, to the forefront. And so that means that in the schools that we have to start from the bottom, which means that, we have to give people the opportunity to have access, to writing, to directing, to producing, to being a DP, to being, any part of the business. Because that's the only way things change. If you don't have writers in the room that are writing, for your culture, whether you're white, black, Asian, or what have you, then it's just, you have somebody else that's writing for you. And so there was a lot of moments during pilot season where I'd get a pilot, and let's say the guy's name was Tom. So I was reading for Tom, and I was like, I'm like, okay, cool, but that it's not written for me, because it just doesn't sound like someone that would, that was the wrong way of doing it. That was the wrong way of doing it. It doesn't serve the story. And for me, aside of color, it's about the story. I don't care if it's a black story or if it's a Hispanic story or whatever the case may be. So sometimes when people are like, oh, well, we should be, pushing for that, I was like, yeah, but if it's written for Tom, then it should probably be Tom. We can't do a thing. Yeah, exactly. So it has to make sense for the story, And the only way those things happen is having people that are behind the scenes. And it is getting better. There's no doubt about it. It is getting better. I have some female writers out of Chicago that were, playwrights that have gone out and they're working on shows now, and they're pushing, for there to be more opportunity for female writers, for, people of color. But that's going to be the only way. So when you have that opportunity, you have to make sure that it's, pushing, the culture forward, because you don't want to go. I also don't like to go to the theater just for the sake because it's a Hispanic movie. If the movie sucks, I'm gonna have to talk to my boy and be like, hey man, I saw the movie, wasn't great. You know what I mean? And I don't want to feel like I'm spending my money just because it's a Hispanic movie. And it happens a lot. I'll get invites to these things, and I'm just like, I can't, because I'm gonna show up there and they're gonna ask me, what did you think? And I'll be like, I don't want to lie. Yeah. And that's our responsibility. That's our responsibility as creatives to do that. And so, but it is getting better slowly but surely, and we have a lot of new faces that are starting to cast a lot of even lead female women of color, especially this season, which hopefully the shows will get picked up and they'll be successful. And but it should be like that just all around. There should be inclusion in general. I mean, if when you look in a room anywhere in the city, it's multicultural, and it's not that don't feel. Another thing is, don't feel like you should be pushing for that voice. You should be pushing for that voice, not for the sake of here's the noise, but it's like, I'm trying to represent what I see around me. And there's many different races and color and ethnicities and genders and and that's what we need. So
no doubt, man. Well, my people, my friend, thank you very much for your time. That was some great insight. I love the way we ended that one. That was a great question right there. great things, man. I appreciate you being here.
For sure.
Good luck to you on everything else you got coming forward. We're definitely going to stay in touch. Everybody that came out, I appreciate you guys. We still got some wine and some cheese. I need y'all to stick around and help me finish that wine and cheese, y'all. The night's not over, all right? The night's not over. Everybody tuning in on Facebook. Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, yeah.
I'm the host of Money Mantra. My name is Cesar, Visuals Zamudio. This is Max Arcinega. And to you, to Max, everybody in this building, as always, peace, blessings, hundreds of lessons. This is the Money Mantra, y'all.
Thank you so much, man.
Sir.
And thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.